Right? Are you all back with me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You're back with me?
Yes, back.
Yes,
sir.
Okay. Now, we have found, see, let me give you a little key to dealing with IRR. Make sure that one of the two MPVs you're going to get before you interpolate, that one is negative and the other one is positive. And if you have a negative MPV, bring down the discount factor. The lower the discount factor, the higher the NPV. The lower the discount factor, the higher the NPV. Then the higher the discount factor, the lower the NPV. Now with what we have done the first tranche, which is getting an NPV of minus 31460. Now let's try the second interpolation. Let's try 5%. Let's discount this at 5%. We'll try 5% or even less. Let's even try 3%. Let's try discounting at 3%. Let's go as low as we can so that we don't have to repeat this over and over again. So in the light of that, this will remain 100,000. So our discount factor will now be discount factor at 3%. And that will be 1 minus 1 for the first year. That's 0.971. This will be 0.971. Will be 1.03 raised to power minus 2. That is 0.943. 1.03 raised to power minus 3. That gives us 0.915. 0.915. Then the next one will be 1.03 raised to power minus 4. That gives us 0.888. Can you give me the figures? Let me start changing them. 0.888 times 60,000 was 44,400. 44,400. What would this one be? 0.915 times 30,000. 27,450. What would this one be? I want to give me the figures, please. Can I have the figures?
14145. Okay. $27,450.
I have 19,420. I don't know.
19,420.
Now let's add and see what we have. 19,420 plus 14,17450 plus 444.
105,415.
105,415. That's fine. That's perfect. 105. minus
Five.
this. That will give us 105, 5,415. 5,415. Positive. Now, what this means is that our MPV lies between, sorry, IRR, this means that the IRR lies between 20% and what? 3%. It lies between 20% and what? 3%. So what will interpolation do? For interpolation will now help you to pin down a particular figure between 20% and 3% that represents the I. We're going to now adopt this formula to find the actual IRR. So now what are we looking for? The approximate IRR will be A. A is the lower discount rate, which is what? The lower discount rate in this circumstance is 3%. Then the MPV of the lower discount rate is 5,415. Then the MPV of the higher discount rate, the lower discount rate is also 5,415. Then you are going to use the absolute value of the other one, the negative one. You won't recognize whether it's negative or positive. That is 31. That's 1 what?
460.
That's 146. That's 1460. Then the difference here will be 20 minus 3. Now this is what we're going to do. So we'll have 5,415 plus 31,460. Then we'll have 5,415 divided by answer. Then multiplied by 17. Give me the answer. Give me your answer.
You're coming. Zero 0.055.
The IRR is approximately 5.5%.
Yeah, 0.055. That's 5%. 0.055.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Ask your question now. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. I am going to give you an IRR question, and it will not be one project. I'm going to give you many projects.
Good evening, sir.
2 or 3 projects, and ask you to determine the determine the MPV. Yes.
Good evening, sir.
I will examine IRR. I will ask question on IRR. That one is true.
No, what is one thing now?
Good evening. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Sorry, sir. I just have to see that you have started the class for a long time. I think the class is supposed to start by 10. I've missed everything from everything you have done.
The class was scheduled for 9 o'clock. And we started the class somewhere around 9:30 or thereabouts. We should run for about 34 minutes only. Any question anywhere, I may still do a rundown of what we have done. Just ask your question if you have any thoughts.
Okay. Please. Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Or I can take a rundown of what we have
Sir,
done.
please, how did you get the 3%? Are we to choose any percentage we want?
I'm here.
Yes, sir. I said the
I can hear you.
The 3%.
That's why it is called trial. I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. I heard you.
Okay.
I said that's why it's called trial and error. You begin with the trial and error method. In the trial and error method, you can choose. In the trial and error method, you can choose any Hello? Hello?
Hello, doctor.
Hi, we can hear
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay.
I can hear you now too.
Okay. I was saying that that's why we call it trial and error. And that's why it's a challenging thing to determine IRR. You keep trying. But the simple guide is just that you will have to take it so high as to produce one negative NPV and bring it low as to produce one positive NPV. Remember, if you draw a number line between the negative and positive lies what? 0. And then what you're looking for is 0. So once you take it very high and you produce a positive NPV, the next thing you will do is to bring it so low and then you produce a negative what I discussed. I'm going to do a rundown of. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Are you still okay? Now we are talking about internal rate of returns. In fact, we have not finished answering the question. Let's finish answering the question first before we do a rundown. Now, the B part of the question is we are supposed to make decision using MPV. For NPV, reject the project. Why? Why are we rejecting the project? Because, tell me. Why are we rejecting the project for MPV? Using MPV as your appraisal technique, why are we rejecting the project?
It has a negative
Because
NPV.
it is negative.
Because it has a negative MPV. It has a negative MPV. That's MPV negative. It has a negative MPV. Then for the second one, we are also following profitability index. What do? We'll also reject the project. Why? Because PI is less than 1. Then for IRR, I'm not giving you the decision rule. Now let me talk about the decision rule before I make the decision. I hope you may have to write it. Now, the organization has a hurdle rate. The hurdle rate of the organization is 20%. So if I calculated IRR is less than the hurdle rate, if calculated IRR is less than the hurdle rate, reject the project. Have you written it? I'm not going to type it. Just write what I'm saying. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can. We can hear you. We can.
If IRR is greater, if IRR is less than the hurdle rate, if IRR is less than the hurdle rate, what do? You reject the project. That means the IRR could not cross the hurdle rate. It couldn't cross the hurdle rate. Remember, this IRR is like the return.
We can't hear you.
I said, I can hear you.
I can't hear you, sir.
You can't hear me. I can hear you. I said, if IRR is less than the hurdle rate, reject the project. IRR less than the hurdle rate, reject the project. So I've written the decision rule for you on the screen. If IRR is less than the hurdle rate or cost of capital, reject. Remember, are you hearing what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Now, the IRR is the expected return. That's what the company is expecting to gain out of executing the project. So if the IRR is less than what it takes them to acquire capital, the cost of capital is like if you borrow at 10% and you're expecting a return of 20%. If the return, the actual return is less than your expectation, the company borrowed money at 20%, and then this project is going to yield 5.5%. Will it be viable? Will you consider that viable?
No, sir.
No.
Fine. So that is why we are going to what? Reject. Now, assuming the IRR is 25% and the company borrowed money at 20%. So would that be viable? Yes, because the return will be higher than the cost of accessing fund. So, and that is when IRR is greater than the hurdle rate or cost of capital. And at that instance, what do? We accept the project. Then If the IRR is equal to the hurdle rate or the cost of capital, it means that at least the company can break even. They can have a return that is high enough to pay back their cost of what capital. Maybe given other considerations, other non-financial consideration, the company may accept. That's why we say it may accept. If it may accept, it may also what? Reject.
Reject.
That means it is neither here nor there. At this point now, you need to subject this project to other considerations, other appraisal considerations, to be able to make the final decision on whether to take it or to reject it. That is what it means. So I'd like you to, you're going to take home an assignment from me. I'd like you to place it on the web page, or I want the class to do this as a combined assignment. Do it as a combined assignment. When you finish doing it, write down the names of those who participated. Send it to my email. The assignment is compare and contrast the benefits and shortcomings of the discounting and non-discounting techniques. I'm not done with this class yet. My next class will be risk in investment appraisal. How do we make provision for risk in investment appraisal? So what are the, we look at something like sensitivity analysis, we look at risk appraisal, we're going to look at the issue of risk in investment appraisal. How do we factor in risk and ensure that the appraisal process accounts for risk? So based on these criteria that we have enunciated, then tell me, are we going to accept or reject the project using IRR? What's the decision?
We reject the project.
So for IRR, we also would reject. Reason, because
It's less than the hurdle rate.
IRR is less than the hurdle rate. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you will remember, I've already done so much on investment appraisal. If I want to set any kind of complex question that I want to set, I've had that discussion with you at my disposal. Remember, I've also discussed with you about when you are comparing projects. I've discussed with you about appraisal technique, non-appraisal technique, but I'm not done yet. We will look at the issue of risk. How do we factor in risk in investment? How do we factor in risk in investment or appraisal? So I like to, okay. IRR reject, the IRR is less than cost of capital, yes. That's the decision. Thank you, George. That's the decision. We will reject because IRR is less than the hurdle rate. Remember, we said here in the question, I asked you to assume that the hurdle rate is the same thing as the cost of what capital. Look at this. Assume that the firm's cost of capital is also its hurdle rate. Remember, a firm may have a different cost of capital and have a different hurdle rate. So if there is a different cost of capital and a different hurdle rate, it is the hurdle rates that you will use as your consideration. If there is no hurdle rate and there's only cost of capital, you will only use cost of capital as the basis for your determining whether to reject or to accept following IRR. So that is the thing you should note. So note that when there is no hurdle rate, cost of capital becomes the hurdle rate. When there is hurdle rate, cost of capital will have the hurdle rate will have the upper hand over the cost of capital. Any question for that? Ask me your question. Okay, so let me do a quick rundown on what I have talked about today. We said that IRR is that discount rate that gives an NPV of what? 0. And that when you are determining IRR, you adopt a combination of two methods because it's a very challenging thing. Of course, through a computer program, it is very easy to determine IRR. You can just input figures and then ask the system to determine IRR for you. Even Excel does that. But for exam purposes, nobody will permit you to carry a computer to the hall to run it. But you'll be expected to do the estimation yourself.